Hello everyone, this is Emma. This month I've been binge reading Elizabeth Strout's books. So far I've read 7 of her books. Olive Kiteridge, Olive Again, My Name is Lucy Barton, Lucy by the Sea, Tell Me Everything and Anything is Possible. I only have 4 here because I already returned 3 back to the library, but I like them all. I just have to say this at the beginning. I love Elizabeth Strout so much. But before I dive into each book, I have to make a confession. For a long time, I think I started on at least three of her novels, but I quit them all within 20 pages or so. For anyone who had a similar experience with the Strout's work, I recommend starting with My Name is Lucy Barton. It's a short, concise story, and it's the first of the Lucy Barton series. So the characters and relationships aren't overly complex, so you can really get a sense of Strout's style without feeling overwhelmed. My Name is Lucy Barton is set in a hospital room. Lucy, the narrator, stays there for 9 weeks. There are a few nurses and doctors showing up, but the heart of the story is Lucy's mother, who visits her for 5 days. The novel unfolds through long conversations between Lucy and her mother about their shared past, about how her mom is incapable of showing love even to her family. Lucy also shares a story about her deprived childhood and her later marriages. It's a story steeped in sadness, not just because of the poverty her family experienced, but also the emotional deprivation. Lucy's family was poor in every sense of the word, materially, socially, and emotionally. As a child, Lucy had no TV, no friends. She didn't even know what salt and pepper shakers were until she went to college. Lucy won a scholarship, left for college, and never really looked back. Meanwhile, her family remained stuck in time, never moving forward, never hoping for more. So Lucy's life took off like a train, leaving the station, while her family stayed behind, frozen in time, their world unchanged. So you can tell that even from this setting itself, it's already really, really sad. Strout's writing style is incredibly consistent across all her books. While some writers challenge themselves and evolve with each new work, Strout remained steadfast in her focus. She writes about ordinary people with ordinary life, with an amazing level of empathy. She delves deep into their inner worlds. It's not about unsung heroes, it's about unsung turbulence, the emotion and struggles we all experience, but rarely talk about. The beginnings of her stories always seem so mundane, almost boring. Yes, the writing is great. You can see it. You can see this fact from the first page. For someone like me who admires writing skills even more than plots, it should compel me to keep reading, right? But the setting, the characters are just too far away from my life. And it's not in a good way. They were not exciting kind of far away. There is usually an elder white man or woman living in a typical small town in America with a boring lifestyle, observing something completely ordinary. There is no immediate plot. No correction, there is no plot. And while I'm usually fine with that, the problem was that it felt like a world I did not belong. It's an age group I hadn't reached yet, so I struggled to connect right away. But if you stick with it for just a couple more chapters, everything changes. That's how amazing Strout is. At this point, I think I'll read anything she chooses to write. Another unusual thing about her work is that none of her characters are immediately likable, but you inevitably falling in love with them eventually. Take Olive Kiteridge, for example. She is a big, old, opinionated woman, strong-willed to the point of being a bully. She didn't know this until very late in her life, but she is hated by so many people, including those who she called family and friends. I'd stay far away from someone like that. I'm actually intimidated by people like that. You just cannot reason with them. Then there is Lucy Barton, who is small and sensitive, but also self-absorbed. Now I'm thinking about it, Lucy Barton is the opposite of Olive Kiteridge. But Lucy is almost selfish at times. Even though she comes across as liberal and tolerant, and she came from a very poor background, Lucy appears to be, at least to me, ungrateful, emotionally dependent, always needing someone or something to cling to. In real life, I cannot stand women like that either. The men in Strout's books are more tolerable in comparison, though still not particularly likable. It's probably a gender thing. When writing about the opposite sex, writers tend to be a bit less critical to the opposite sex, simply because they don't know them as well, as intimately as themselves, I guess. In Lucy by the Sea, Strout shifts the focus to a more recent event, the COVID-19 pandemic. Lucy and her ex-husband, William, escaped to a remote part of Maine to avoid the virus in New York. This book feels more immediate, more reflective of the social problems we've all been living through. The isolation, both literal and emotional, is so close to my heart. Strout is never afraid of letting the characters reflect on themselves, which I appreciate so much. I don't know why, but it feels like some recent works in recent years, especially those popular books, is very afraid of doing that. You almost do not see how the character thinks. The writers gingerly avoid all inner conversations, but try very hard to show their psychological state through the characters' actions and conversations. If you read classics, you'll see this is such a big contrast to, say, early 20th or late 19th century work, where it's pages and pages of inner monologues. When I switch between modern work and classics, I feel like reading two opposites. One too much, one no mentioning at all. And I applaud Strout's courage for going against this new trend. I kind of like to see the characters are thinking what I am thinking. It really helps me to be immersed. And sometimes I feel like this is necessary. It's not a taboo that you must avoid. In this book, you can see just that. There is a sense of deep reflection in Lucy's voice as she remembers her past, her relationship with William, and her place in the world that feels increasingly unstable. All of her past self is disintegrated, is being redefined either as a New Yorker, a small town girl, a mom, a wife, a writer. Everything's changing for her. It's also happening so late in her life, which makes her afraid all the time. In Oh, William, the narrator is still Lucy Barton, this time through her relationship with her ex-husband, William. This book is about reconnection and how the past lingers in our lives. It explores how Lucy, despite all her progress, is still tied to William in ways that she cannot shake. And it was so tender, so touching. You really feel a woman's connection with a man without any definable relationship. And sometimes I feel like maybe we meet our other part too early or too late. Maybe a person is only right for you at a certain time. The story has this quiet power as Strout shows how unresolved emotions and family histories influence every relationship. There is one line that sums up this book for me. We never really know anyone, do we? That's the heart of it. Lucy realizes she's never truly known William, even after all those years of marriage, even after raising 2 kids together and send them to college, just as we often don't know the people we think we are closest with. The way Strout unpacks these layers of intimacy and distance is masterful. You feel like you are being shown something tender and private, a glimpse into how complex love and loss can be. Olive Kiteridge. I am still amazed by this character, Olive. How could I love a character that I would hate otherwise in real life? This book might be Strout's most famous book, and for good reason. Olive is a retired school teacher in a small town in Maine, and is a character unlike any other. She is brash, opinionated, and often unlikable. Oh, Gosh, I've said this so many times. She is unlikable, but she is also deeply, deeply human. The novel is structured as a series of interconnected stories with Olive at the center, sometimes directly involved and sometimes just put on the periphery. So this book is very easy to read too, and it's so brilliant. It's structured in such a way for ADHDs. You don't feel like you are reading one person's life. It's more like a group portrait of people in a small town. Each story is so short, it only requires you 10-20 minutes attention to really get into it, and then it switches to another. Like I said, really perfect for ADHDs. What makes Olive Kiteridge special is Strout's ability to capture the complexity of a life that on the surface seems ordinary. Olive is deeply flawed, but she is also fiercely real. She's the kind of character who lingers in your mind long after the book is finished. Through Olive, Strout shows us the rough edges of human relationships, love, disappointment, regret, and the quiet moments of redemption. One of the most memorable lines from this book is when Olive reflects, "I do not have a clue who I have been. Truthfully, I do not understand a thing." It's a raw and honest moment. You can just see from this one sentence that Elizabeth Strout writes simply but precisely, but it peers into your heart always at the right moment. Olive Again is a continuation of Olive Kiteridge, and it doesn't disappoint. It's actually my favorite of all 7 books I read so far. Olive is older in this book, wiser in some ways, but still so blunt and difficult as ever. What's remarkable about this book is how Strout manages to show Olive's growth while keeping her true to who she is. Strangely, it gave me immense hope. If someone can rebuild their life, their social connections, relationships, their opinion to the world, and their understanding of themselves at 70, even 80 years old, wow, then human potential is truly powerful. This book, like the first, is structured as a series of interconnected stories. But here we see Olive more vulnerable, more aware of herself getting old, approaching death. Strout explores aging, loneliness, and the way our past choices continue to shape us. Olive's interactions with the people around her are sharp, often painful, but always insightful. Oh, I just love this book so much. It's my favorite so far. In Anything is Possible, Strout expands the world of Lucy Barton, returning to the small town where Lucy grew up. But just like Oliver Kiteridge, Lucy is more like a prop, a setting. This book is made up of a series of interconnected stories focusing on different people from Lucy's past. While Lucy herself is a distant figure here, her presence is felt throughout the book. She is a shadow that everybody in that small town talk about, a lingering existence to remind people who stayed behind and who moved away. This novel is about the ripple effect of a single life. The characters in Anything is Possible are all grappling with their own struggles, poverty, trauma, unfulfilled dreams. But Lucy's success serves as both a beacon and a reminder of what they could never achieve. This book is the saddest of them all, I have to say. Some of the lives you meet in this book is hard to read, hard to face, hard to imagine. Strout shows us how deeply interconnected we all are, even when we try to distance ourselves from our past. But most importantly, how we live on, no matter what, in our own way. Tell Me Everything. This is actually the first Strout book I finished from beginning to end. In this book, Olive Kiteridge and Lucy Barton meet. For readers who followed her other works, it's like, how do I say that? It's like Batman and Superman meet for the first time. So it's very exciting. It's still a collection of stories to reveal the inner lives of characters who might otherwise go unnoticed. There is rawness to these stories. The title says it all. This book is about uncovering the truth, no matter how painful or complicated or even ugly they are. My only complaint actually came after I read all the other books is that there is a bit too much repetition in this book. You already know some people's stories in the most intimate way in the other books. And here it's reintroduced, but in a shallow way. It just feels not quite right. So in conclusion, Elizabeth Strout has a rare gift of writing about everyday struggles of ordinary people. Her work resonates so deeply because it's about the quiet, often unspoken emotions that define our lives. In a chaotic, confusing time, her stories offer a reminder of our shared humanity. Strout's characters feel real, flawed, and deeply relatable. Her writing style is simple yet profound. She doesn't rely on big plot twists or dramatic relationships. Instead, she focuses on the small moments, the conversations, the reflections, the unspoken feelings that shape our lives. Her work is perfect for you if what you are looking for is meaning in the ordinary. A reminder that even in the quietest lives, there is beauty and depth. Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.